I've poured thousands into my parents' lives, only to be slapped with the truth. Their will leaves me absolutely nothing. My financial support, all that effort, completely disregarded. The betrayal is crushing. They can honestly go straight to hell for this unbelievable disrespect and deception after everything I did. You know that feeling when a betrayal hits so deep, it makes your entire life flash before your eyes? That's exactly how I felt the day I realized my own parents had been systematically stealing from me for decades, all while demanding I sacrifice everything for family. It was a cold, hard slap to the face, a truth far more devastating than any lie they'd ever told. From the moment I was a little kid, my life felt like one big responsibility. My dad had a terrible work accident when I was young, and just like that, I was thrust into the role of man of the house. My little brother Marcus was too small to understand, let alone help, so I didn't have a choice. By the time I was just 16, I was juggling school with daily shifts, making sure we had electricity so Marcus could play his video games, making sure there was food on the table. It was a thankless job, honestly. The only times my parents ever seemed genuinely proud of me was when I was putting money directly into their pockets. It was a bizarre dynamic, a kind of warped love language. When high school graduation came around, I had a golden ticket, an acceptance letter to an Ivy League school out of state with a scholarship. The scholarship wasn't quite enough, but there was financial aid, a path to covering the rest. I was buzzing with hope, picturing a future where I could actually build something for myself. But then my parents, with a casual cruelty that still stings, refused to sign the financial aid papers. "The family needs you here working," they said, as if my dreams were an inconvenience. For years later, Marcus got into the same college. They signed his papers without a second thought, even took out loans for him. While I was busting my ass working 2 jobs to keep a roof over their heads, Marcus was living the college dream, all funded by my parents' double standards. It felt like a punch to the gut, a clear message. His future mattered, mine didn't. The real trap, the one that truly sealed my fate for years, sprang shut when I was 32. My incredible fiancé, Jordan, and I were finally ready to start saving for our wedding, building a life of our own. I bravely tried to reduce my monthly payments to my parents, from an exorbitant $3,500 down to a still generous $2,000. I thought they'd understand. I was so wrong. They absolutely lost it. My mom, in a fit of theatrical rage, actually called my boss. She tearfully spun a tale, claiming I was mentally unstable, stealing from my elderly parents, abusing them financially. It was a disgusting, vicious lie. I nearly lost my senior management position. HR got involved, and I had to go through the humiliating process of showing them my bank statements, proving I was giving my parents money, not taking it. The shame burned, a deep, hot flush spreading across my face as I tried to explain away their baseless accusations. Last year, desperate and hopeful, I tried again. Jordan needed surgery, something serious. And we needed every penny. I asked them just once to let me skip a single month's payment. Their response? They showed up at my office, full-blown meltdown. The scene they created was so chaotic that security had to physically escort them out. My biggest client, a relationship I'd cultivated for years, witnessed the entire spectacle. They dropped our company immediately, costing me a massive $50,000 commission. The betrayal was crushing, the impact on my career devastating. So when my mom had a mild stroke, and they announced they were finally updating their will, a tiny foolish flicker of hope ignited inside me. I genuinely believed this was my light at the end of the tunnel. They had always promised me that everything would be mine someday. A kind of morbid justification for all my sacrifices. Jordan and I had dreamed of moving into their home. A house my dad had built with his own hands on a huge piece of land. It was our dream home, a place we envisioned raising our future family. We had just found out we needed IVF to have kids, but I told Jordan we could start treatment after the will was finalized, after I was finally free. Sunday dinner arrived, and my parents were practically glowing. Marcus was there too, which in hindsight should have been my first screaming red flag. He only ever showed up when he wanted something. Dad cleared his throat, a theatrical gesture that sent a cold dread through me. "We've finished with the lawyer," he announced, his voice oozing satisfaction. Then came the words that shattered my world. "Everything goes to Marcus." Just like that. The house, the cars, the investments, all of it. I felt like I couldn't breathe, a suffocating weight pressing down on my chest. Then Dad added, almost as an afterthought, "And you'll get the family business." My heart leaped for a second, a desperate flicker of hope, before it died completely. The family business was Dad's old auto shop, which had been closed for 5 years. It wasn't just closed, it was a ruin. It carried $180,000 in debt, was riddled with environmental violations from years of improper oil disposal, and had 3 years of back taxes. I knew, just from a quick mental calculation, that it would cost at least $300,000 just to break even, and that didn't even include the $100,000 for environmental cleanup. It wasn't an inheritance, it was a poison chalice. It was a prison designed to keep me paying for them forever. "This is a joke, right?" I choked out, my voice barely a whisper. Marcus, sitting across from me, couldn't quite hide his smirk. "I'll take good care of the house, bro," he said, a sickeningly sweet tone. My mom chimed in. "You're so good with money you'll turn it around." Jordan, always my rock, spoke up, her voice firm. "That shop will bankrupt us." My mother's face hardened, her mask of sweet deception slipping. "You'll be fine," she snapped. "Besides, Marcus will give us grandchildren. You failed us there too." That was the final brutal blow. The implication that our struggles with IVF, something so deeply personal, were somehow a failure to them. And then Dad delivered the absolute gut punch. "Of course," he added, as if this were the most natural thing in the world, "we'll still need our monthly payments while you get the shop sorted out." That was it. I snapped. I stood up, pushing back my chair with a jarring scrape, and walked out. My dad's angry yells about ungrateful children followed me all the way to the car. In the car, Jordan was silent for a moment, then she looked at me, her eyes brimming with a fierce resolve. "I've been preparing," she said, pulling out her phone. My stomach clenched as she showed me. On her screen was a meticulously organized spreadsheet. Every single payment I'd made to my parents, every bank transfer, every receipt. $412,000 over 15 years. And then she played something else. Recordings of my parents' threats, a chilling video of them causing that scene at my office. "I knew this day would come," she said, her voice a quiet testament to her incredible foresight. My heart swelled with a mixture of relief and awe at this woman who had silently, diligently been building a shield for me. My phone buzzed. It was Diane, my parents' paralegal friend. "The shop has liens. Don't sign anything. Call me now." A cold dread settled in. I spent that night, fueled by a potent mix of anger and terror, researching the auto shop. It was even worse than I thought. The $300,000 just to break even, the $100,000 environmental cleanup. This wasn't an inheritance. It was a financial death trap, a cleverly disguised prison sentence designed to keep me beholden to them forever. The next day, I didn't go back empty-handed. I went back armed. "I've learned from my past mistakes," I said, my voice steady, placing a folder full of documents on their pristine dining table. "Here's a cease and desist letter from my lawyer." My mom immediately started to cry, a performance I was now immune to. "How will we survive?" she wailed. "The bank is closed permanently," I said, pulling out another document. "I've already notified the creditors that I won't be accepting your business. Marcus went pale. "But you have to take the shop. It's family legacy," he stammered. "Your inheritance, your problem." I shot back, my voice dangerously calm. "Hope the house sells for enough to cover it." My dad stood up, his face beet red with rage. "We'll destroy you. We'll call your job again." "Try it," I said, a chilling calm washing over me. "I have lawyers this time." I walked out, leaving them to turn their fury on Marcus, demanding to know how he planned to pay for the shop's debts. It was a small, satisfying victory, but I knew it was just the beginning. 3 weeks later, Diane called, her voice urgent. "Your grandmother left you a trust," she revealed. "Your parents hid it from you." My hands started shaking. A trust? From my grandmother? How long had they been hiding this? Jordan insisted on coming with me to Diane's small, unassuming office in a strip mall. Diane met us at the door, her face serious, and led us to a conference room. "I've been wanting to tell you this for years," she began, spreading documents across the table. "Your grandmother set up a trust for you when you were 5 years old. Your parents were supposed to tell you when you turned 18. I stared at the papers, my grandmother's clear signature at the bottom. The trust was worth over $200,000, plus a property I'd never even heard of. They've been collecting the interest payments, Diane continued, explaining they told the trustee they were holding it for me. Jordan squeezed my hand under the table, her anger a silent echo of my own. How is that legal? She demanded. It's not, Diane confirmed, but they had power of attorney while you were a minor. After you turned 18, they just kept going. The trustee never questioned it because your parents said you were aware. I did the quick math in my head. 20 years of interest payments. That was easily another $100,000 they'd stolen. There's more, Diane said, pulling out another document. The property. It's a rental house on Maple Street. They've been collecting rent for 15 years. My stomach dropped. $1,500 a month for 15 years. Another $270,000. My head spun with the sheer audacity of it all. Can we prove this? I asked, my voice tight. Diane nodded. I've been keeping copies of everything. When they came to update their will, I knew what they were planning. I couldn't stand by anymore. We spent the next 2 hours poring over every document, every transaction, every lie. That night, Jordan and I sat at our kitchen table, papers spread out like a battle map. We'd been robbed of almost $600,000 over the years, just from the trust and rental income alone. Money that could have paid for college, our wedding, IVF treatments, a life free from constant financial stress. We need to move fast, Jordan said. Before they figure out Diane told you. I nodded, a new fierce determination surging through me. We made a list. Contact the trustee, get a forensic accountant, file the paperwork to claim the trust, secure the rental property. The next morning I called in sick to work. Jordan and I drove straight to the trustee's office. Mr. Peterson, an older man who'd known my grandmother, went white as a sheet when I showed him the documents. I always dealt with your parents, he stammered. They said you were traveling, busy with work, that you'd ask them to handle it. I never knew it existed. I stated, my voice calm but firm. He immediately started pulling files. Within an hour, I'd signed everything to transfer control to me. The rental property would be in my name by the end of the week. What about the money they took? Jordan asked. That's a legal matter, Mr. Peterson said carefully, but I'll provide any documentation you need. We left with more papers and a promise that no more payments would go to my parents. Our next stop was the forensic accountant Jordan had found. Patricia Chun came highly recommended and understood our situation immediately. Financial abuse is more common than people think, she said, already taking notes. We'll trace every penny. By afternoon, we were exhausted but not done. I drove to the rental property I now apparently owned. It was a nice 2-bedroom house with a tenant who'd been there for 5 years. She was surprised to see me. I always mailed the rent to Mr. and Mrs. Williams, she said, confused. Are you their son? I briefly explained the situation. She was understanding and agreed to start sending rent to me. Another $1,500 a month that was rightfully mine. That evening my phone started ringing. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. Then Dad, then Marcus. I simply turned off my phone. Jordan had ordered pizza and we sat on the couch trying to process everything. In one single day, our entire financial situation had changed. But I knew with a cold certainty that my parents wouldn't go quietly. They're going to come here, Jordan said, stating the obvious. Let them, I replied, a new sense of resolve hardening my voice. I'm done being afraid. Sure enough, around 8 o'clock we heard car doors slam outside. I looked through the peephole, all 3 of them. The pounding started immediately. Open this door right now, my father yelled. I stayed quiet. Jordan was already recording on her phone. We know you're in there. Mom screeched. How dare you go behind our backs? That money is ours. Marcus joined in. We raised you. They pounded for 10 agonizing minutes, yelling threats and accusations. Neighbors' lights started coming on. Finally, Mr. Rodriguez from next door came out. I'm calling the police if you don't leave, he said firmly. They left, but not before my father screamed that this wasn't over. Jordan and I didn't sleep much that night. We knew this was just the beginning. The next morning, I woke up to 57 missed calls and twice as many texts. I didn't read them. Instead, I called my lawyer, Sarah Mitchell. She'd helped with the cease and desist letter, but now we needed more. Bring everything, she said after I explained. We need to move fast to protect your assets. Jordan and I spent the morning at Sarah's office. She reviewed everything with growing disbelief. This is extensive financial fraud, she said, her voice grave. We're talking about criminal charges level fraud. I don't want to send them to jail, I said, the thought still sickening me. I just want what's mine and to be left alone. Sarah nodded. We can start with a civil demand letter. Give them a chance to return what they took, but you need to be prepared that they won't go quietly. She was right. The letter was sent that afternoon. By evening, my parents had hired their own lawyer. Marcus had been texting me nonstop, alternating between threats and playing the victim. You're destroying our family, one text read. Hope you're happy. Jordan took my phone and without a word blocked all three of them. The next few days were a blur of legal meetings, accountant sessions, and paperwork. Patricia had found even more money they'd taken. They'd been claiming me as a dependent on their taxes, even though I hadn't lived with them in over a decade. They'd opened credit cards in my name when I was 18 and maxed them out. The total is close to $700,000, Patricia said, including interest and penalties they should have paid. I felt sick. All those years of struggling, of Jordan and I putting off our dreams, of feeling guilty for wanting to reduce their monthly payment, all while they were systematically stealing from me. Sarah filed our official complaint with the court, asking for full restitution plus damages. She warned me they'd likely try to settle for less. Don't take the first offer, she said, or the second. They've had 20 years of your money. You can wait a few months for justice. The rental property transfer went through that week. I met with the property management company my parents had hired and terminated their services. I'd manage it myself for now. The tenants seemed relieved to deal with me directly. Your parents were difficult, she said carefully. Always raising rent, never fixing anything. I spent the weekend at the property, fixing things that had been neglected for years. Jordan helped and we actually enjoyed the work. It felt good to take care of something that was truly ours. Monday morning brought a new surprise. Diane called sounding panicked. Your parents came to my office, she said. They're threatening to sue me for breach of confidentiality. Can they do that? I asked, my blood running cold. No, she said. I never worked for them officially. But they're desperate. She paused. They also mentioned something about your grandmother's house. What house? I asked, confused. The trust just mentioned the rental property. That's what I thought too, Diane said. But your mother let slip something about the other property. I think there might be more they're hiding. I immediately called Sarah. She said she'd subpoena all property records associated with my grandmother's estate. If there was another property, we'd find it. That afternoon, I was at work when security called. My parents were in the lobby demanding to see me. I told security not to let them up and called Sarah. Document everything, she said. This is harassment. I watched from the security office as my parents made an embarrassing scene in the lobby. My mother was crying dramatically while my father yelled at the security guards. Marcus stood behind them, looking incredibly uncomfortable. I'm their son, my father kept shouting. You can't keep me from my son. Security eventually got them to leave, but not before my mother collapsed dramatically, claiming chest pains. Paramedics came, checked her out and found nothing wrong. She refused transport to the hospital once she realized I wasn't coming down. My boss called me into his office after they left. I understand you're dealing with family issues, he said carefully, but this can't keep happening. I showed him the restraining order paperwork Sarah had prepared. I'm handling it, I assured him. That night, Jordan and I went through more of the documents Diane had given us. Hidden in the stack was something we'd missed before. A reference to a safety deposit box in my grandmother's name. Do you have a key? Jordan asked, her eyes wide. I thought about it. When my grandmother died, I was 12. My parents had cleaned out her house, but I remembered a small box of her jewelry they'd given me, saying it was worthless costume pieces. I kept it out of sentiment. We dug through our closet until I found it. At the bottom, under a tangle of necklaces, were two small old-fashioned keys. Oh my God, Jordan breathed. The next morning we were at the bank when it opened. The safety deposit box was still active, paid automatically from an account I didn't even know existed. Inside were more documents, old photos, and a letter addressed to me. My hands shook as I read my grandmother's words. She'd known. She'd known my parents would try to take everything. She'd set up the trust to protect me, but worried they'd find a way around it. She'd left detailed instructions about all her assets, including a second house in the mountains that she'd inherited from her sister. I hope by the time you read this you'll be old enough to stand up to them, she'd written. Don't let them steal your future like they tried to steal mine. There were also bank statements showing accounts my parents had drained after her death, investment portfolios they'd cashed out, bonds they'd claimed. The theft went back even further than we'd thought, stretching back into my childhood. Jordan and I took everything to Sarah. Her expression grew darker with each document. This changes things, she said, her voice grim. This is systematic fraud over decades. We need to amend our filing. As we left her office, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was Marcus using a friend's phone. They're planning something. Dad mentioned calling your clients. Mom's been going through old photos. Be careful. It read. I showed Jordan. Do you think he's actually warning us, or is this a trap? I asked, torn. Does it matter? She said, her voice firm. We need to be ready either way. She was right. I called my biggest clients personally, explaining briefly that I was dealing with a family situation and to disregard any strange calls about me. Most were understanding. A few even shared their own family horror stories. That evening we installed security cameras around our house. As we were finishing up, a car drove by slowly. Marcus was in the passenger seat, my father driving. They didn't stop, just circled the block twice. Let them look, Jordan said, pulling me close. We're not hiding anymore. The next few weeks fell into a grueling pattern. Legal meetings, accountant reviews, property management, and dodging my parents' escalating attempts to contact me. They'd shown up at Jordan's work, called my friends, even contacted my old high school trying to get records. Sarah immediately filed for a restraining order. The hearing was set for the following month. In the meantime, she advised us to document everything and avoid any contact. The forensic accounting was revealing more each day. My parents had been running their own twisted scheme for years, using my credit, my name, my grandmother's assets. They'd lived well while I struggled, all while demanding more and more from me. The total is over $1 million, Patricia finally said, her voice heavy. Between what they stole and what you gave them, plus interest and damages. $1 million. I couldn't even process it. Jordan held my hand as we sat in stunned silence. They don't have $1 million, I said finally, the enormity of it sinking in. No, Patricia agreed. But they have assets. The house, cars, retirement accounts. It'll take time, but you can recover a significant portion. That night, Jordan and I talked about what this meant. Even if we only recovered half, it would change our lives. We could do IVF, buy our own house, have the life we dreamed of. It's not about the money, I said, trying to rationalize the deeply personal nature of this fight. It's about finally being free. Jordan kissed me. It can be about both, she whispered. The restraining order hearing arrived faster than expected. I wore my best suit, my heart pounding in my chest. Sarah had prepared me, but I was still anxious about seeing my parents. They were already there when we arrived, huddled with their lawyer. My mother looked older, frilier. My father just looked angry. Marcus sat behind them, avoiding eye contact. The hearing itself was straightforward. Sarah presented our overwhelming evidence of harassment. The videos from my office, the security footage from our house, the endless calls and threats. My parents' lawyer tried to argue it was just family disagreement, but the judge wasn't buying it. Showing up at someone's workplace repeatedly is not normal family behavior, she said sternly. The restraining order was granted. My parents were ordered to stay away from our home, our workplaces, and to cease all contact except through lawyers. As we left the courthouse, Marcus approached quickly, before his parents noticed. I'm sorry, he said quietly, his eyes meeting mine for the first time in years. I didn't know about grandmother's money. They told me you'd already gotten your share. I studied my brother. He looked tired, stressed, a shadow of the carefree golden child. What else don't you know? I asked, a bitter edge to my voice. He glanced back at our parents, who were now glaring at us. Meet me tomorrow. Noon. The coffee shop on 5th. Then he was gone, hurrying back to them. They glared at me as they left, but said nothing. Are you going to meet him? Jordan asked in the car. I don't know, I said, but I was curious. What else had they hidden? That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Marcus, about how different our lives had been. He'd gotten everything while I worked, but maybe he'd been manipulated too, just differently. The next morning Sarah called with news. She'd found the mountain property. It was in a trust my parents had somehow transferred to themselves, but the transfer was questionable at best. We can challenge it, she said. Add it to our suit. I agreed. At this point I wanted everything back. Not out of greed, but out of principle. My grandmother had wanted me to have these things. My parents had stolen not just money, but her wishes. At noon I sat in the coffee shop, nursing a lukewarm coffee, waiting. Marcus showed up 10 minutes late, looking around nervously before sitting down. They don't know I'm here, he said quickly. They think I'm at a job interview. Job interview? I asked, surprised. He laughed bitterly. Yeah, turns out when your inheritance comes with $700,000 in debt, you need a job. He looked utterly defeated. They've been pressuring me to sell the house. So sell it, I said plainly. Can't. They're living there. He rubbed his face. Dad says it's my duty to take care of them, just like it was yours. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Marcus pulled out a folder. I found these in Dad's office, he said, sliding it over. I think you should have them. Inside were letters. Dozens of them, all from my grandmother to me, all unopened. Birthday cards, Christmas cards, letters asking why I never visited. My throat tightened, a lump forming that was impossible to swallow. She wrote to you for years, Marcus said, his voice quiet. They told her you didn't want contact. Told you she was too sick for visitors. I remembered asking about grandmother, being told she needed rest, that she'd asked not to be disturbed. All lies. There's more, Marcus continued. The auto shop, it's not just failing. Dad's been using it to hide money. Cash business, you know. He's been skimming for years, not reporting income. Why are you telling me this? I asked, looking him straight in the eyes. Marcus met my gaze for the first time in years. Because I'm tired of being their golden child. Comes with a price too. Different from yours, but still a price. He stood to leave, then paused. They're planning to claim you manipulated grandmother, that you turned her against them. They've been creating fake evidence. Be ready. Then he was gone, leaving me with the stack of unopened letters. I sat there for another hour, reading my grandmother's words, her love pouring off the pages. She'd loved me. She'd wanted to see me. She died thinking I didn't care. Jordan found me there, still reading. She'd gotten worried when I didn't answer my phone. She read a few letters with me, both of us crying. We're going to make this right, she said firmly. All of it. That evening Sarah called with urgent news. My parents had filed a countersuit. They were claiming I'd manipulated my grandmother, stolen from the family business, and caused emotional distress just like Marcus had warned. It's garbage, Sarah said. But we need to respond. Can you come in tomorrow? I agreed, then spent the night organizing all the new evidence Marcus had given me. The letters especially would help prove my parents had isolated me from my grandmother. The next few days were a whirlwind of legal preparation. Sarah was building our case methodically. We had evidence of fraud, theft, manipulation, and financial abuse spanning decades. My parents' lawyer had requested a settlement meeting. Sarah advised against it, but I wanted to see what they'd offer. The meeting was in a neutral conference room downtown. My parents looked smaller somehow, sitting across the massive table. Their lawyer started with an offer that was insulting, $50,000, and they dropped their countersuit. Sarah actually laughed. My client has documented theft of over $1 million. $50,000 doesn't even cover the rental income you stole last year. My mother started crying. We're family. How can you do this to family? You stole from me for 20 years, I said calmly, my voice flat. You isolated me from grandmother. You demanded money while hiding an inheritance. That's what you did to family. My father slammed his hand on the table. We raised you, fed you, kept a roof over your head. I paid for that roof since I was 16. I shot back. Every utility bill, every grocery trip, every repair. I have the receipts. Their lawyer tried to regain control, but it was over. We left without agreeing to anything. In the parking lot, my mother approached despite the restraining order. Please, she begged, her face streaked with tears. We'll lose everything. You should have thought of that before you stole everything, Jordan said, stepping between us, her voice sharp and unforgiving. Security intervened before it could escalate. We filed a report about the violation. Another mark against them. That night Marcus texted again. They're getting desperate. Dad mentioned something about the business records. Be careful. I showed Sarah the text the next morning. She immediately filed for an emergency injunction to prevent them from destroying any documents. It was granted just in time. When the authorities showed up at the auto shop, they found my father feeding papers into a burn barrel. The documents they saved showed years of tax evasion and money laundering. This is now a criminal matter, Sarah informed me. The DA will likely press charges. I felt conflicted. Despite everything, they were my parents. But Jordan reminded me they'd made their choices for 20 years. Now they had to face consequences. The mountain property inspection revealed another surprise. My parents had been renting it out for years. Another income stream they'd hidden. The tenant was shocked to learn the truth and agreed to testify if needed. Our case was becoming overwhelming. Sarah had brought in a partner to help manage it all. The evidence filled boxes. Financial records, letters, recordings, witness statements. 20 years of deception laid bare. Then came another blow to my parents. The IRS had been notified about the auto shop's books. They opened their own investigation. My parents' lawyer withdrew from the case, citing irreconcilable differences. Marcus met me again, this time at a park. He looked utterly exhausted. They want me to lie, he said without preamble. Say you forged grandmother's signature. That you've always been manipulative. Will you? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He shook his head. I'm done. I'm selling the house as soon as the market improves. They can figure out their own living situation. What about the shop debt? I asked, knowing the crushing weight of it. I'll let it go to bankruptcy. Should have done that from the start. He paused. I'm sorry for all of it. For believing their lies about you. For taking what should have been yours. It was the first real apology I'd gotten from any of them. We didn't hug or have some movie moment, but something shifted between us. The civil trial date was set. Criminal charges were pending. My parents had hired a new lawyer, but their position was weak. They'd started selling things, preparing for the worst. Sarah was confident. We have them dead to rights. The only question is how much we can recover. Jordan and I had started IVF treatments, paying with our own money for the first time in our lives. It felt liberating. We'd also put an offer on a house, something we'd never thought possible just months ago. The week before trial, my parents made one last desperate attempt. They showed up at our house at 3 a.m., pounding on the door, screaming about forgiveness and family duty. The cameras caught everything. The neighbors called the police. They were arrested for violating the restraining order. I didn't bail them out. The trial itself was anticlimactic. Faced with overwhelming evidence, their new lawyer advised them to settle. The negotiations took 2 days. In the end, they agreed to pay back $600,000 over time. The house would be sold to pay the initial lump sum. The mountain property would be transferred to me immediately. They'd cover all legal fees. The criminal charges were still pending, but at least the civil matter was resolved. As we left the courthouse, I saw my parents one last time. They looked broken, aged, defeated. My mother reached out as if to speak, then dropped her hand, her gaze vacant. My father just stared, his eyes burning with a mixture of hatred and despair. I felt empty. Not happy, not sad, just hollow. Jordan squeezed my hand. It's over, she said, her voice a bomb. But it wasn't. Not really. There would be payments to monitor, property to manage, a relationship with Marcus to maybe salvage. The criminal trial was still coming, but for the first time in 20 years I was free. No more monthly payments, no more crushing guilt, no more suffocating manipulation. That night, Jordan and I sat in our new house, surrounded by boxes, a tangible symbol of our new beginning. The IVF was progressing well. We had hope for the future. Do you regret it? Jordan asked, her voice soft. I thought about it, about the family dinners we'd never have, the relationship that was broken beyond repair, the parents who'd chosen greed over love. No, I said finally, the word feeling surprisingly firm. I regret that it came to this, but I don't regret standing up for myself. She curled into my side. Good, because I'm proud of you. 6 months later, the criminal trial ended with probation for both parents. They'd avoided jail time barely. Marcus had moved across the country for a fresh start. We exchanged occasional texts, nothing more. The mountain property turned out to be beautiful. Jordan and I spent weekends there, fixing it up, making it ours. We'd even found more of my grandmother's things hidden in the attic, old photo albums, forgotten jewelry, more letters, pieces of a relationship I'd been denied. The rental property provided steady income. Combined with our salaries and the settlement payments, we were comfortable for the first time ever. And the IVF? It had been successful. Jordan was 4 months pregnant with twins. Life moved forward. I still sometimes dreamed about reconciliation, about my parents showing up genuinely sorry, but I knew better. Some bridges once burned to ashes couldn't be rebuilt. At therapy, I worked through the guilt, the anger, the grief of losing the family I'd never really had. It was hard work, soul-crushing at times, but absolutely necessary. You didn't break your family, my therapist reminded me gently. You revealed what was already broken. She was right. The foundation had been rotten from the start, built on exploitation and manipulation. I just finally stopped pretending otherwise. Jordan and I created new traditions. Sunday dinners with friends who'd become our chosen family. Holidays at the mountain house. A future built on truth instead of lies. Sometimes I'd drive past my parents' apartment, the small place they'd moved to after losing the house. I never stopped, never reached out. That door was closed permanently. Marcus sent a Christmas card with a photo of his new girlfriend. A small step, but something. Maybe someday we'd find our way to a real relationship. Maybe not. The twins arrived in spring. 2 perfect boys who would never know the crushing weight of family obligation. Who would be loved for who they were, not for what they could provide. As I held them for the first time, a profound promise formed in my heart. They would know their worth wasn't measured in dollars given or sacrifices made. They would be free to live their own lives, make their own choices. The cycle was broken. Finally, truly broken. And that $1 million inheritance my parents had stolen? In the end, it was worth less than the freedom I'd gained by walking away. Money could be recovered. Self-respect, once lost, was much harder to find. I'd found mine, and I was never giving it up again. The settlement payments started arriving monthly, but of course the first check bounced. Sarah immediately filed a motion with the court. My parents had emptied the account they'd agreed to use for payments. The judge ordered them to appear, threatening contempt charges. Jordan and I attended the hearing together. My parents shuffled in looking disheveled, their new lawyer clearly frustrated. The judge reviewed their financial statements and discovered they'd been hiding money in offshore accounts. Another investigation opened, this time involving federal authorities examining international wire transfers. Patricia Chun uncovered even more disturbing patterns. She found evidence of identity theft going back decades, not just against me but against other family members. My great-aunt's estate had mysteriously dwindled after her death. A cousin's college fund had vanished. The scope kept expanding as we dug deeper. Marcus called me late one night from his new apartment in Seattle. He'd been going through old family documents and found our grandfather's will. It mentioned provisions for all grandchildren, not just him. Our parents had hidden this too, forging documents to redirect everything to themselves. He overnight me copies of everything he'd found. The mountain property inspection revealed structural damage our parents had hidden from tenants. The repair estimates came to $40,000. Jordan and I spent weekends there anyway, camping in the livable sections while contractors worked. We found more of grandmother's belongings hidden in the walls, including gold coins and savings bonds they'd missed. My boss called me into his office one morning. Despite my explanations, the repeated disruptions had affected my performance reviews. He suggested I take a leave of absence to handle my family situation. I agreed, knowing my job security was hanging by a thread. Jordan's income, thank God, would have to sustain us through the escalating legal battles. The IRS investigation into the auto shop expanded. They found evidence of money laundering for other local businesses. My father had been running cash through the shop for years, taking a percentage. The criminal charges multiplied. Federal prosecutors got involved, building a racketeering case that could mean serious prison time. Sarah warned me that my parents might try to flee. Sure enough, their neighbors reported seeing them loading suitcases into a rental car at dawn. Border Patrol stopped them at the Canadian border with $50,000 in cash, hidden in the car panels. They were arrested and held without bail as flight risks. Jordan's pregnancy progressed with complications. The immense stress of everything triggered early contractions. Her doctor ordered bed rest, forcing her to take unpaid leave from work. Our finances tightened just as legal bills mounted like mountains. We sold my car and drastically downsized our lifestyle, determined to see this through, no matter the cost. Patricia discovered my parents had taken out life insurance policies on me without my knowledge. They'd been paying premiums for years, naming themselves as beneficiaries. The policies totaled $2 million. Sarah immediately moved to have them canceled and investigated for insurance fraud. The rental property tenant called with bad news. The furnace had failed and pipes had burst during a brutal cold snap. Insurance covered some damage, but we faced $20,000 in repairs and lost 3 months of rental income. Jordan and I maxed out our credit cards to cover emergency fixes, our savings dwindling. Marcus flew in for a deposition. He testified about our parents' manipulation and the insidious lies they told him about me. His testimony proved crucial in establishing a long pattern of deception. Afterward we had coffee and we truly talked about rebuilding our relationship. He even offered to help with the rental property repairs. My parents' criminal trial began with media attention we hadn't expected. Local news covered the story of elderly parents accused of defrauding their own son. Reporters called constantly. Jordan and I had to change our phone numbers and install additional security cameras after strangers started driving by our house. The prosecutor presented evidence of systematic fraud spanning 30 years. Bank records, forged documents, and witness testimony painted a damning picture. My mother broke down on the stand, claiming I'd abandoned them in their old age. My father, ever defiant, maintained his innocence, insisting everything they'd done was for the family. During the trial, Diane dropped a bombshell. She revealed she had recordings of my parents discussing their plans to hide my inheritance. She'd been secretly documenting their schemes for years, knowing this day would come. Her evidence proved premeditation and criminal intent. The defense had no counter to the chilling recordings. Jordan went into premature labor during week 2 of the trial. I rushed from the courthouse to the hospital, my heart in my throat. The twins arrived 6 weeks early, tiny and fragile, requiring NICU care. Medical bills piled up as insurance fought coverage for the premature birth. I split my time between the hospital and courthouse, utterly exhausted and overwhelmed. The jury deliberated for 2 agonizing days, guilty on all counts. My parents faced up to 20 years in prison. The judge allowed them to remain free pending sentencing, but they had to wear ankle monitors and surrender their passports. They weren't allowed to contact me or come within 500 feet of my family. Sarah filed liens against all their remaining assets to secure our judgment. The house sale finally went through, netting $400,000 after debts. The proceeds went into an escrow account for victim restitution. My parents fought every step, filing appeals and motions that only prolonged the excruciating process. The twins came home after 3 long weeks in NICU. Jordan and I took shifts caring for them, sleep-deprived but filled with an overwhelming love, all while managing legal proceedings. Sleep deprivation and stress tested our marriage to its limits. We started couples counseling to work through the trauma and maintain our partnership through the chaos. Marcus helped us renovate the rental property on weekends. Working together slowly, painstakingly, we repaired our relationship along with the damaged house. He shared his own therapy journey, how he'd been unpacking years of manipulation. We discovered our parents had played us against each other since childhood. Insidious seeds of rivalry planted decades ago. The forensic accounting final report revealed the true, sickening total theft. It exceeded $1.2 million over 30 years. This included the hidden trust, stolen rent, fraudulent tax returns, identity theft, and misappropriated inheritance from multiple family members. The sheer scale shocked even Sarah, who'd seen many financial abuse cases. My former employer called with an ultimatum: return to work immediately or lose my position. With Jordan still recovering from the premature birth and the twins needing constant care, I couldn't return full-time. I negotiated a part-time remote position at reduced pay, incredibly grateful to maintain any income. Sentencing day arrived, my parents looking frail and defeated in their prison jumpsuits. Character witnesses testified on their behalf, attempting to paint them as confused elderly people led astray. The judge didn't buy it. 15 years for my father, 10 for my mother, with the possibility of parole in 7 and 5 years respectively. They turned to look at me as guards led them away. My mother mouthed something that might have been sorry, or might have been a curse. My father just shook his head, his eyes empty. I felt hollow watching them disappear into the prison system, knowing our relationship, the one I'd fought for and against for so long, was truly over. The settlement process dragged on with appeals and delays. Sarah warned full restitution could take years. We received partial payments from the house sale, enough to cover immediate expenses and medical bills. The rest remained tied up in legal proceedings as my parents' lawyers fought every distribution. Jordan returned to work part-time, and we juggled childcare between our schedules. The financial strain eased slightly, but we still lived paycheck to paycheck. The dream of using the settlement for a better life seemed increasingly distant as legal fees consumed each payment received. Marcus accepted a job transfer back to our city to help with the twins. He moved into a small apartment nearby and became the uncle we'd hoped he'd be. Watching him with my sons, I saw glimpses of the brother he might have been without our parents' toxic influence. The mountain property became our retreat from the chaos. We spent weekends there as a family, teaching the twins to love nature. Jordan and I even renewed our vows there on our anniversary, surrounded by the friends who'd become our chosen family. It felt like reclaiming something pure from the wreckage. Patricia uncovered one final secret. Our parents had been receiving disability payments in my name for years, claiming I was mentally incompetent, and they were my caregivers. The Social Security fraud added federal charges to their sentences. It also meant I owed back taxes on income I'd never received. Sarah negotiated with the IRS for months. Eventually, they agreed to waive penalties given the circumstances, but I still owed the principal. We set up a payment plan that would take 5 years to complete. Another financial burden added to our mounting obligations, but at least it was manageable. The twins' first birthday approached as the legal battles continued. Jordan and I decided to celebrate simply. Just family and close friends at the mountain house. Marcus brought his new girlfriend, a therapist who understood our complicated family dynamics. Watching my sons smash their birthday cakes, I felt a surge of hope for their future. A future I was finally building on my terms. My parents' lawyer contacted Sarah with a proposal. They'd agreed to expedite restitution payments in exchange for monthly prison visits from me. I refused immediately. They'd stolen enough of my life. They wouldn't get to steal my peace or expose my children to their manipulation. The rental property finally turned profitable after renovations. Between that income and our jobs, we achieved financial stability for the first time since the legal battles began. We started a college fund for the twins, determined they'd have opportunities I'd been denied. Marcus and I attended therapy together, working through decades of programmed rivalry. We discovered how our parents had sabotaged every attempt at brotherhood, feeding lies to keep us apart. The healing process was slow but worthwhile. My sons would grow up with an uncle who loved them unconditionally. A letter arrived from my mother in prison. Sarah screened it first, confirming it contained no legal threats. She'd written 10 pages of justifications and accusations, ending with a demand that I put money in her commissary account. I burned it without responding. Some patterns I realized never changed. The second year of settlement payments brought more stability. We paid off credit cards and started saving again. Jordan found a better job with flexible hours. I transitioned to full-time work with a new company that understood my situation. Life slowly normalized around our new reality. My father suffered a heart attack in prison. The authorities notified me as next of kin. I authorized necessary medical treatment, but didn't visit. Marcus went once and reported back that Dad had spent the entire time complaining about the unfairness of his situation. Neither of us returned. The twins started walking and talking, filling our house with chaos and joy. They knew nothing of grandparents or family drama. Their world consisted of love, safety, and opportunity. Jordan and I worked hard to maintain that innocence while building their future on solid ground. Sarah called with unexpected news. Another victim had come forward. My parents had defrauded an elderly neighbor out of her retirement savings. The new charges wouldn't affect their current sentences, but would impact any possibility of early parole. Justice, I realized, continued revealing itself in waves. We sold the mountain property to cover legal fees and tax obligations. It hurt letting go of grandmother's place, but financial freedom mattered more than sentiment. The sale cleared our remaining debts and left enough for a modest emergency fund. We finally breathed freely. Marcus married his girlfriend in a small ceremony. I served as his best man, something neither of us would have imagined years ago. In his speech, he thanked me for showing him what real family looked like. We both cried, mourning the brotherhood we'd been denied while celebrating what we'd built. The final restitution payment arrived on a Tuesday. Sarah called to confirm the case was officially closed. All appeals exhausted, all payments made, all liens released. 5 years of legal battles had ended, not with the full $1 million stolen, but with enough to start fresh. Jordan and I sat on our porch that evening, watching the twins play in the yard. We'd survived. Our marriage had strengthened through the trials. Our children were healthy and happy. We built a life free from manipulation and lies. The price had been high, but freedom was priceless. My phone rang with an unknown number. The prison, informing me my mother had been hospitalized with kidney failure. They needed medical directives from next of kin. I provided necessary authorizations for comfort care, but again declined to visit. Some doors once closed needed to stay that way. Marcus and his wife announced their pregnancy at Sunday dinner. Our chosen family celebrated with genuine joy. My sons would have a cousin to grow up with. A real family connection built on love rather than obligation. We toasted to new beginnings and generations free from toxic patterns. The twins started preschool, thriving in social settings. Their teachers commented on their emotional intelligence and kindness. Jordan and I exchanged proud looks, knowing we had broken the cycle. Our sons would never question their worth or feel obligated to earn love through sacrifice. A letter arrived from Dad's lawyer. He wanted to reconcile before his health declined further. The letter included photos of him in prison, looking gaunt and old. I felt a flicker of pity before remembering the decades of manipulation, the relentless emotional abuse. I filed the letter away without responding. Work promoted me to senior management, recognizing my dedication despite the earlier disruptions. The salary increase allowed us to increase college savings and plan for a real vacation. Jordan found her dream job in nonprofit management. Success felt sweeter for having been earned honestly. The twins asked about grandparents after seeing friends with theirs at school. Jordan and I had prepared for this conversation. We explained simply that some people weren't safe to be around, even family. They accepted it with the easy wisdom of children, more interested in their next play date. Sarah invited us to dinner to celebrate the case closure. Over wine, she admitted ours was one of the most complex family fraud cases she'd handled. The systematic nature and duration had shocked even seasoned prosecutors. She kept our file as a teaching case for law students. My mother died on a Thursday morning. The prison chaplain called with the news. She'd refused dialysis and passed peacefully. I authorized cremation and declined to claim her ashes. Marcus and I discussed a memorial but decided against it. We'd already mourned the parents we'd wished for. Dad's lawyer contacted us about the will. Despite everything, he'd left his remaining possessions to us. A box of personal items, and $3,000 from his prison account. Marcus and I donated the money to a financial abuse charity, and threw away the box unopened. Some inheritances, we learned, weren't worth claiming. The twins turned 5 as we finalized adoption papers for a baby girl. Jordan and I wanted to provide a home for a child who needed one. The social worker praised our stability and commitment to breaking cycles. Our daughter arrived just before Christmas, completing our family, a testament to a life built on integrity, love, and true freedom.